I'm so glad you're here. And if you are here, my guess is that you either want to guest on podcasts or you're already guesting on podcasts and you want bigger results. So, guesting is a marketing strategy just like any other, whether it's publishing a book, hosting your own podcast, speaking on stage, social media, Facebook ads, all of the visibility and marketing strategies, they all require intention and moving pieces that have strategy. A lot of guests make the mistake of really focusing on getting booked. I have to get booked. Where do I get booked? Where do I go? How can I find them? How can I pitch properly? Which can be a bit of a tunnel vision, and they're not thinking it from a holistic view, which I look at it through a 360 view, and that is looking at every piece of guesting strategically from beginning to end. So before, during, and after the interview. Again, I call this guesting 360. And so I set it up into three phases. That is prepare, perform, and propel. Now, when you give attention and intention to every little piece of the guesting process, you are more likely to hit your goals. Episode 1, if you want to go back and listen to, was about goals and how setting those goals will impact all of those strategies so that you're not throwing spaghetti against the wall. You're not trying to do and achieve everything with no focus, because I want you to get results. I want you to be seen and heard. I want you to be known as an expert in the field, that you have those amazing gifts and talents. And I want you to reach more people and to grow your business, right? That's why we're here. That's part of the reason why we're guesting on podcasts. So let's get into it. So when you are looking at guesting, almost like a podcast launch, because when you are a host, you again have all the different elements, the intro, the outro, your show format, how you're going to market it, what kind of guests you're going to have, all those moving parts. So kind of think about it as a guesting launch, if you will. And so again, as I mentioned, there is prepare, perform, and propel, those three phases that I have. And so I'm going to go through them because I want you to think about it in a way that you're creating a guesting game plan. What is your plan of attack? What pieces do you have in place already? What do you need to tweak and improve? And what do you need to start doing to build out that guesting game plan and build out that strategy? So let's look at prepare. So this is what you do before you even get on the mic. It's all the strategy, the messaging, the assets before you even guest. So again, I already mentioned the goals. Episode 1 will cover that. So you can, of course, go to guesting 360. That's 360.com slash Substack. Actually, it's substack.guesting360.com. Or, of course, you can look up Podcast Guesting 360 on any of your podcast apps. So that is your goals. Then you want to think about your message and the audience. Who are you trying to reach, and what do you want to be known for? So clarifying your message. What method, what framework, what body of work do you want to be known for? How you want to help people, and thinking, of course, of who you want to help. Because that who you want to help, of course, will impact what kinds of shows that you want to pitch and that you want to guest on, as an example. Then you're going to think about your podcast topics. Your topics in general, as a concept of what you're going to talk about, but even so much as thinking about your podcast topic title, because that topic title is your billboard. I call it a Billboard-Ready topic, because that is what will help get you booked. You want to hook the podcast host and you want to hook the listeners because that topic, when they're scrolling through Spotify, Apple, whatever it may be, and they see a topic or a topic title come up, they're going to want to know it's for them. They're going to want to know what problem that episode will solve. So, thinking about your topic, making sure that it's relevant for the audience. It's something that they need help with. It's helping one of their pain points, but also it's attached to what you want to be known for, and of course, your offers. I always say that the conversation that you're having on a podcast is a bridge to profits. It is the bridge between the audience's pain and your offers. And that conversation brings the audience over that journey. So think about your topic in that prepare phase so that you are ready to go and it's a strategic topic. Of course, you're going to think about your bio, your one sheet, your media page, your press page. Almost all podcast hosts will want to see that. It's a quick snapshot into who you are and how you're going to serve their audience. The bio is not like a bio that you have on LinkedIn. It's not like a bio that you have on a resume. The bio helps the podcast host, again, understand your expertise, what makes you different, but also how you're going to serve the audience and how you're going to bring value. And then, of course, the recording setup, right? Your studio, the lighting, the mic, the camera, what's behind you. How is that set up so that you look clean, professional, like you've been there, done that, like you are a guest expert, and that you know what you're doing? Because podcast hosts are going to look at that. If they look at past episodes that you've guested on, and there's like weird lighting coming into your face, there's like a window beside you, your mic sounds awful, the lighting is dark, you are going to impact the ability of getting booked on more shows. So think about your recording setup. And then what is your pitch plan? What shows are you going to guest on? Why those shows? How are you going to pitch? How are you going to reach out? And how are you going to track it? So you need that system ahead of time before you start pitching. So there's just a few pieces. It's not all. And actually, if you go to substack.guesting360.com, you can, of course, subscribe on Substack. But if you become a Guesting Growth Insider, you actually get access to the Guesting Growth Vault. And in there is a starter kit, which shares the 360 model, which gives you the guesting game plan, check sheet, a checklist. And there's actually a video walkthrough as well that'll step you through all of that. So then you'll know exactly what to tweak, what you already have in place, what you need to add. So you have a game plan to start with. It's not there to overwhelm you. It's to help you see the areas that you can be strategic in. So you can go to substack.guesting360.com to find that. So the second piece is perform. This is the biggest piece that guests don't necessarily think about. Because so many hosts will say, oh, I want to have an organic conversation. Or I know my material, I can just wing it. I'll just answer the questions that the host gives me or asks. But what happens is that that host doesn't know your expertise. They don't know what your framework is, your material. So half the time they don't know what to ask. Or they'll start asking one thing and another thing. And then the conversation ends up being super random, tons of tangents. And then the audience is left not knowing really what you're an expert at, kind of, but they don't understand how you can help people see you as the solution and really picture what it's like to work with you. So it really impacts the results and the chance of conversions for that episode, that interview. So, some of the pieces that I have within Perform is, of course, creating that conversation flow ahead of time. This is what I absolutely love to work with my clients on, whether it's privately or in my guesting growth lab, is that we actually lay out the interview questions and a conversation flow and your talking points so that you're super clear, you're super confident, and the audience who's listening understands your expertise, understands how you're the solution. And of course, story sound bites, right? So, what stories can you tell about your own experiences, about your clients, not in a way that's salesy or like sounds like a testimonial? You want it to come across short and succinct, but to seed your programs and help them again picture what it's like to work with you. So when I do work with clients, we again map out the conversation flow. We think up the craft the interview questions. I call them the interview GPS because it's kind of like your conversation compass that guides the conversation when you give them to the host. And again, your story sound bites so that you're prepared and that you can show up feeling confident and know exactly what you're going to say and how to keep that conversation on track so the host doesn't go rogue and the conversation doesn't go all over the place and, just get super confusing. Quick story. So, when I was creating reels, content for clients when they're guesting on podcasts, again, when I started creating reels, I was then listening to the conversations more in depthly and like trying to pull out nuggets for content, right? Carousels and so forth. And I started to really notice that the conversations were all over the map or just very general. And I remember this one client, Jen, and I'm like, Jen, you have all this body of work. You have these assessments, these tools. And I started to ask her more questions like, how do you work with your clients? She's like, oh, I do this, this, this. And we started having a deeper conversation about it. And I'm like, none of that comes up in the interviews whatsoever. And I'm like, the interview is kind of like all over the place. And we're like, okay, let's dial it in. Let's create interview questions. Let's map out a conversation flow. So that's kind of like how that came into play. But I digress. So you've got the interview questions, your talking points, the story sound bites, and then also connecting with the host, right? Yes, the interview is important and you want to address the audience and get leads and clients, but you also want to nurture that relationship that you're having with the host. Comment on their social posts. How are you going to build that relationship? How are you going to reach out? How are you going to follow up? How are you going to serve them and help them? Maybe there's even ways that you can partner or collaborate. So thinking beyond that interview. So again, perform is really about the conversation itself, but then also the relationship that you have with the host and how to leverage and foster that. So now we're going to move into the Propel phase because once the interview is over, it doesn't mean you walk away and like wash your hands of it. You still need to think about the relationship that you have with the host, potential opportunities, collaborations, and partnerships that can come out of that. But you also want to have the opportunity to leverage and repurpose that episode for even more credibility and authority and visibility, and using that content to not only share the episode, but to even use it to fill your mastermind, to promote a workshop that you have coming up, or a lead magnet, or get people on the phone. So you can absolutely use that episode to leverage it and use it in so many beautiful different ways And when you get that guesting game plan, you'll kind of see some of all the different steps. And of course, I'm going to do an an episode coming up talking about repurposing and leveraging those episodes because you can get a ton of value from it long after the mic is over. So when I say treat guesting like a launch, this is what I mean. Being strategic before, being strategic during, being strategic after the episode goes live. And again, I'm not saying to all of these pieces to overwhelm you like, oh my God, I have so much to do. Yes, there are some moving pieces. Even if you start with one and tweak it, you're taking action to optimize your guesting strategies to get more clients, results, again, whatever your goal is. So, if you want to grab that guesting game plan worksheet that I have, it's in the guesting growth vault inside of Substack. So, you can go to substack.guesting360.com, that's 360.com, and you can go upgrade and become a guesting growth insider there. And I hope you join me. I hope you subscribe. And I hope you listen and stay tuned to more episodes of Podcast Guesting 360 because I want to help you get more strategic and get more results from guesting. So, till next week.